Hello, my brothers and sisters on the Dragon's Path. My name is Tim Heijen, and I believe in dragons. And I had a very interesting question from someone actually. Yeah, that was actually more like a question for a role-play game. But in the end, it's a very interesting question for the people who walk on the Dragon's Path, because it involves dragon gods and involves how we have to take our path in behind the dragon. And it also involves one of the most important rules of the dragon's path, and that comes from a dragon god. But also, yeah, this question was, um, what if Daenerys from Game of Thrones meets um, Smaug? Smaug is the dragon from The Hobbit or in the Lord of the Rings franchise, and Daenerys is the one who is calling herself the mother of all dragons in the universe of Game of Thrones. I never actually watched Game of Thrones because, like I said, all the dragons seem so misinterpreted in all of these movies and games, and especially in that one. I understand why a lot of brothers and sisters love this show and love the dragons within. It's not the dragons that I have a problem with, it's the humans who think, yeah, she's calling her the mother of all dragons. Well, there was only one on my dragon's path who has the right to call herself like that, and that is Tiamat, Tiamat, my dragon goddess, because she's the mother of all. And so, the mother of all dragons, she can say this. But what if Daenerys, if I spell it right, Daenerys, the one who calls herself the mother of all dragons, meets Smaug? You have to know something about Smaug. Smaug, the dragon from The Hobbit, is in fact totally based on the dragon god Fafnir. Fafnir is the Fire Lord. Fafnir is the dominant male dragon god of pride and elegance. He is the only dragon god born on the earth upon all that which fire-breathing dragons are based on. He's proud that and he's proud, and the sense of learning all the time gave him a gift of even communicating with humans, such as we can see in the movie The Hobbit, where also this dragon Smaug was communicating with all humans in this movie, just the same as the stories say of Fafnir, the fire-breathing dragon god. Um, if Fafnir saw something like this, where dragons were held in chains, and wherever they were doing everything what a human was saying to them, like this supposedly mother of all dragons, Daenerys, was. Of course, she was raising these dragons in chains and took care that they, all three of them, was following her into the battles such that she was reigning. Even it was putting them in danger, but like, yeah, in human terms, it's they don't see anything wrong to this, because that is what a human is. The human thinks they are dominant all over the world so that they can take care of dragons, and this is once again a very misinterpreted, so if I spell it right, thing of the dragons, that they are raised like this in chains, that they automatically, like horses, will follow someone like that into their battles, into war, even into war that will put them in danger. And it shows, because if I can see it right, two of the three dragons were killed in all of these battles that she had, or supposedly mother of all dragons. If Fafnir would see, Smaug, if Smaug would ever meet someone like Daenerys, and see the dragons that are around her, uh, he would put her to the test immediately. He would let her see that the dragon fire is something to fear, and you should not burn yourself upon it. The other dragons, of course, will supposedly try to defend her, but of course, Smaug is much bigger and much more dominant than all of the other dragon gods. Of course, Smaug will never hurt them, because, of course, they are the dragons that he sees. That, of course, the only reason why Smaug would ever kill these other dragons is because there is nothing left of draconic within them, because he can see this as saving their soul from this human poison that was inside of him. That would Fafnir do. I mean, and Smaug, Fafnir, it's the same. Smaug also had the communication to talk with the dragon, and of course that Smaug would use this in his advantage to confuse her and to say why she would ever need a dragon anyway in the first place if she was so superior. That is what I could understand from Smaug's intellection, that he was very dominant and he was very proud and he was saying whatever he has, the abilities that he has, that he owns, and he will never leave something behind that he can say in his advantage. Um, if Smaug still sees that the supposedly Daenerys, mother of all dragons, has no fear of dragon fire, he will completely still put her to the test and put her aside and do everything to release the other dragons. But if it does not succeed, if they can still continue to attack him, Fafnir, instead of the humans, then of course there will be a point that, not because he wants it, but because he has to, some kind of release their soul. Because, like I said, Smaug is based on Fafnir, and Fafnir had just the same origin story. The origin story of becoming a god and becoming trapped in something inside of him just that he just cannot get released from. He could not get released from his prisons, his chains. He could not. There was, of course, a story that I have to tell you. Dragons of like him, the dragon was cursed by manipulating him and sickening him and centering all of his pride and power and abilities on the gold that comes from Odin. Odin, the Norwegian god. His body and mind was like a slave to the gods. He could not escape it and killed every man who got too close to the gold. His spirit, however, was touched by Odin and gave him the status of a god later on, not because Odin wanted this, but because a touch of a god creates a god. He should not get interfered into something like this, but Odin was very surprised by Fafnir's abilities and fire wielding powers that he had, that Fafnir was touched by him, even though it made him a god, and it made him a god of what he was best in fire and in fierceness, in protection, and in whatever the protection that he loves. He was controlling his abilities to let fire control him. I mean, he was one with fire. When Siegfried struck him in the final blow and his body died, he became the Lord of Fire, the elegant, proud dragon whose blood was so divine that it made those who washed with it become invincible. So that the story itself, of course, that the dragon's blood, if you wash yourself in dragon's blood, you will become invincible. So yeah, like I said, Smaug from the movie The Hobbit was Fafnir. He was Fafnir, while the movie Lord of the Rings showed the manipulation of Odin's treasure, the ring itself. I personally learned from this story, and it was through him that I really understood why one of these three rules meant on the dragon's path. The dragon is not a slave. Fafnir's main line that I will never forget. If he ever saw a dragon in chains, he will not hesitate to free it. Fafnir is a fear dragon to humans. His ability with fire and lack of understanding for humans made him fearful, and Christians in the 5th century made good use of it when the people from the church converted the people from Europe to Christianity by fearing the dragon, and it was all because of the stories of Fafnir. So yeah, that was actually a very interesting question. Actually, thank you, because that was something to think about. Because Smaug is in fact another body of Fafnir, and Smaug would not react that well to Daenerys from Game of Thrones, and would do everything for the dragons, but would do anything to manipulate the humans. Manipulate because he would want to see that he's smarter than him, that he's more intelligent than him, than them, all of them, and that he would not use immediately the violence that they would use to the dragons. He would use manipulation that he's so familiar with. Manipulation that is, of course, a thing that Fafnir does. Fafnir uses manipulation for against humans, but not, of course, against dragons. Dragons must be free, and there comes the first rule ever. I did not learn it from Tiamat immediately, or Leviathan, or any dragon god. It was from Fafnir that I learned that dragons are no slaves. You cannot use them. You cannot manipulate or dragons. You cannot do this. And if they are doing this like Daenerys did with her dragons, then of course Fafnir or Smaug would not react that well to it. So that is also a reason why I don't like these TV shows or movies that is just not showing it right. Even if Smaug, even Smaug itself was not that one that I wanted to see, because in the end he died, and he was very misunderstood in the end still. But how Smaug would react to Daenerys or her Game of Thrones dragons, then I believe that he would like to let them be released. The only reason why he ever want to fight with them, or even sometimes to kill them, is that in his mind he would think that he would do good, because if you are a slave, then death is better sometimes. In this case, he really believes that, and he knows it. He knows it very well, because he was a slave, and once he was released in death, he was released, and this is how he would see the situation between the dragons from Game of Thrones. And also the dragons, every dragon that would be manipulated by humans. Dragons cannot be manipulated. That is what he believes. And if he sees something like this, then he would prove that dragons indeed cannot be manipulated. And the only thing that they can can do this are gods. And that is what gods did to him. And he became a god out of it. My brothers and sisters,